It's page 293. 293. I never knew this song was in here, but there's a lot of songs that I don't know, and Art has taught me a lot of them, but 293 is one. Had I known about this, I would have told you this about 3 weeks ago. Now, I'm sure Marion knows all about this song. I mean, she said, yeah, we sang this a lot. Art sang it to me over the phone. Has anybody sang this song before? Carol.
I remember that from a camp meeting we went to back, I guess, when we were in Phoenix.
Wow.
And I remember them playing this song.
We used to play that.
Really? See, I've crawl out from underneath that rock. Here I am. Let me read you the lyrics. You stay with me. Elijah was God's prophet. Elijah was God's prophet. Elisha stood close by. And ere the prophet left him, he heard his servant cry, let thy mantle fall on me, let thy mantle fall on me. A double portion of thy spirit, Lord, let thy mantle fall on me. Then Elijah made the promise that if faithful he would be, his petition would be granted, and God's glory he would see. Number 3, as Elijah rose to heaven in a chariot of fire, he did not forget his servant who expressed one strong desire. Let thy mantle fall on me, let thy mantle fall on me. A double portion of thy spirit, Lord, let thy mantle fall on me. And then you go to stanza 4 and 5, and Art said it's almost like 2 different songs because you change key and the speed's a little different. In the upper room they waited, 'twas the faithful Christian band, and their prayer was heard and answered over in the glory land. That prayer of early Christians long ago and far away is the cry of all God's children, and he's just the same today. Let thy spirit fall on me, let thy spirit fall on me. The promised blessing, may it be outpoured, let thy spirit fall on me. I never knew that it was there. When we were studying that would have been just perfect to have sung that. And I thought, wow, I just had to call Art. I said, Art, tell me about this. It says 1962. But down at the bottom underneath that it said, well, that's 1990. I'm looking at numbers different. 1962. Turn your page to 294. And this song, Bring Your Vessels, Not a Few, is tied to 2 Kings 4, verses 3 and 5. Ask all your neighbors for empty jars, and they brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. We talked about that last week. Right there it is. I mean, 2 songs right in a row of what we've been studying, 2 Kings 2 and then 2 Kings 4. Isn't that incredible? I guess it helps if somebody knows their hymnal. I thought that was just worth talking about. So there you have it. How many have sung the second song, Bring Your Vessels, Not a Few? Very good. I don't know that I've ever heard either one of them sung. Anyway, we're in 2 Kings chapter 5. Thank you for coming tonight. 2 Kings chapter 5, we're still talking about Elisha. Isn't it incredible? We hardly ever hear about him, and yet it seems like there was far more exploits by him than by Elijah. But Elijah's the one who gets all the attention. Chapter 5, we're going to read a story about a man named Naaman. Lived up here in Syria, important man, and I want to talk about what God did for him. as I've been saying for quite some time now, I think that the story out of Elijah and Elisha, both of them put together, is telling the same story. And all that you read and all the exploits and the miracles and the supernatural, there's one message being broadcast to Israel and to Judah and to all the surrounding countries is there is a God in Israel. To me, you could boil it all down to that thought. There is a God in Israel. Go back to Mount Carmel. Remember what the message was? Whichever God answers by fire, let him be God. And it was a test. And down at the end of the day, the fire fell and consumed the altar of Elijah. And the message there was, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. You'd think that that would put an end to all of it, but it didn't. Well, then you turn a couple pages and 1 Kings 20. God allows the Israeli army to rout the Syrians up in the mountains. And they go back home with their tail between their legs. And they say, well, it's because their God is the God of the mountains. And that's why we couldn't defeat them. So a year later they regroup and double their army and come back down. And God allows them to be beaten again because they discounted him, so that they know there is a God in Israel. And Israel knows there's a God in Israel. 2 Kings chapter 3, Elisha, we're talking about this, Elisha tells Jehoshaphat and Joram and the king of Edom, right down in here in the wilderness, to dig ditches in the desert where rainfall is so scarce, just like 4 inches maximum for the whole year. Annual rainfall, 4 inches. Dig ditches. Tomorrow morning they'll be full of water. And sure enough, within 24 hours, when the morning sacrifices were being offered in Jerusalem, water come running down off the mountain, spilled all those ditches. The Moabites thought it was all blood, and by the end of the day, yes, it was blood. It was their blood that was spilled. And now the king of Edom and the king of Moab and all here and all there and everywhere else knows there's a God in Israel. That is the one takeaway for me throughout all the exploits of both of these great prophets, is that there is a God in Israel to be reckoned with. Chapter 5 carries on that same theme. Verse 1 says there is Naaman, a man by Naaman up there in Syria. What is his title? What would that be in today's terms? Well, he's a general, but how big of a general?
Like the president? Commander-in-chief?
He is the commander-in-chief over the whole Syrian army. The next person higher than him is the king. He is the big kahuna for the military. I mean, there's nobody else higher than him. And the Bible says in verse 1 some very intriguing things about him. How does it describe him?
Great and honorable.
He is great and honorable. This man is above board in everything. He's an honorable man. He tells the truth. You can trust him. He is of fine character. How else does it describe him?
Mighty man of valor.
Mighty man of valor, that means he is bold and courageous. He ain't scared of nothing. How else does it describe him?
A leper.
But there's one more thing that they use.
A leper.
No, before you get to that.
Before you get to that.
The Lord had given him victory. Now, let's think about this for a moment, and I'm going to mess with your theology. But he is not a Hebrew. He's a Gentile. He is the commander-in-chief for the Syrian army. They've been making raids down here into Israel, and God's blessing him. Let's look at that. Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master. His king loved him. He's a hero in the whole country. Honorable. the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. Mighty man of valor. He's won some battles, and now he is a national hero. But as Carol said, he has a dilemma. What is it?
Leprosy.
He is a leper. What do we know about lepers?
Yeah,
They're banished. They are considered unclean. In the Levitical rules that in Israel, they have to be cut off and severed from all population. They're quarantined. Evidently in Syria, they are giving him some space because he's such an honorable, wonderful general, and everybody loves him. His troops love him. The king loves him. He has won battles. Tells me that the leprosy can't be full blown. Okay? I don't think it's like what you see in Judah Ben-Hur, where Charleston Heston goes down into the caves to find his mother and his sister. But I mean, he's got leprosy. It's not full blown, but he's got it. If he was in Israel, he would be banished. But evidently, because he is so wonderful, they're looking the other way. Well, verse 2 says that the Syrians had gone out by companies and had raided areas of Israel and carried away people for slaves. And of all of those, there was a little girl, a young gal, carried away. And what happens to her? In verse 2.
She served Naaman's wife.
Somebody said, you know what? She would make good in your own house. And Naaman takes her home and gives her to his wife as a slave. Servant. Same thing. In those days, servant was a slave. So she was a Hebrew Israelite carried away, prisoner of war, up here to Damascus, and now she is living in a really nice house, really important people, but she's a slave. And it doesn't take long, being in that house, she notices a condition that Naaman has, because being an Israelite, she would have been concerned. In her country, he would have been quarantined. He's not. She notices that, and she says, oh, it's such a shame. If he was down here in Israel, he'd be quarantined?
No.
What did she say? If only he was down in Israel.
He could see the prophet.
He could see the prophet, and the prophet would put him in a quarantine camp.
Heal him.
The prophet would heal him. Here's a little girl that probably would have had her mouth washed out by some rabbi who said, no, don't say that. He doesn't belong in public. He belongs out of circulation. That's what we do with those people. And she said, oh, it's such a shame. It's too bad your husband can't go see the prophet in Samaria because he'd heal him of his leprosy. Well, you know how people talk. I mean, it doesn't take long. People talk about stuff that they just heard, so they have to tell somebody else, who tell somebody else, who tell somebody else. And in verse 4, it doesn't take long, and somebody goes in and tells who? The king hears of this. And the king loves Naaman. King loves him. The whole country loves him. And the king hears it. Thus and thus saith the maid that's in the land of Israel. In verse 5, the king of Syria said to Naaman, I'll tell you what, how about if you just make a trip and go down there and go see that guy? We love you so much. We'd just love to see you get healed. I'm going to dispatch a letter under the king of Israel, this area right here, and you go down there and see him. Why would he need a letter?
He's a leper to start with.
Why would he need papers?
So that he wouldn't be banished.
One king to another.
Oh, yeah. What would it look like if the top general for Syria is caught in the capital city of Samaria? What would that look like? That would look like a security breach. What are you doing here? This is espionage. This is an act of treason. This is a declaration of war. The top general. What if Putin's top general showed up in Washington unannounced? He was just found. What would we think? We'd think all kinds of things. That's what we're talking about here. He is going to send his top military man down here to Samaria, the capital of Israel. But he's going to do it right. I'm going to send a pretty good delegation with him, and I'm going to give you letters, a visa, and you go down there and you go get your healing. So, verse 5, he departed. And how much money did he take with him?
6,000 shekels of gold.
6,000 pieces of gold. How much money is that?
More than I've got.
$6,000 pieces of gold. I did a little research this morning on the internet, and I had to look at spot price for gold on the market that is in ounces, and then you just do the math. Spot price for gold right now is $1,834 an ounce. $1,834 an ounce. Well, then you times that by 16 for a pound, and then you times that by, I think in one place I said it come out to 150 pounds of gold. 6,000 pieces of gold come out to 150 pounds. My calculator spit out a number of $4,401,720. So a little over $4 million. That's gold. What else do you take with you? Silver. How much silver?
2 pounds.
That is the equivalent of 750 pounds of silver. Spot price on silver this morning was $23.32. Times that out, and you come out to just under $280,000 just in silver. So he is sending, if you do the math and you add the gold and silver at today's market, today's value, it's $4.6 million. He gives his war general a leave of absence. He gives him a delegation of people to go with him. He gives him $4.6 million. And what else is thrown in?
Clothing.
End of verse 5.
10 changes of clothing.
10 new tailored Armani suits. And off he goes. Well, the king knows doctors aren't cheap. If I'm going to get this guy healed of leprosy, they're not cheap, and he's out of state, and you cross borders and everything, the price goes up. So we're going to cover the bases. I'm going to give you plenty of money, and off he goes. Verse 6, they arrive. King gets the letter. It's read to him. How does the king of Samaria respond? King Joram, how does he respond to Ben-Hadad? We believe it's Ben-Hadad's letter. How does he respond to it in verse 7? Tore his robe. What's that a sign of? Is it afraid and wore out and he just tripped on it? Despair. And what does he say?
Am I a God?
Am I God? Who in the world thinks that I can heal anybody of leprosy? He sends his letter, says, I want you to heal my most favored general. He has leprosy, and we want you to get him healed. And king says, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding. What is he thinking? I am not God. I do not have the gift of healing, and I cannot heal anybody of anything, not even the common cold, let alone leprosy. To him, he says, At the end of verse 7, wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh what? A quarrel. He's trying to pick a fight. He sends this false flag down here. I want you to heal this guy, and because I can't, well then now he has reason to go to war with me. Meanwhile, across town, verse 8, across town, Elisha, the man of God, heard what has just went down in the palace, how the king of Israel had rent his clothes, and he sent to the king with a message. Now, how did Elisha hear that, what just happened across town? How did he hear that? Did he hear it with the ears? Did he hear it with his heart?
Heart.
I think he heard it with his heart. I don't know that somebody went in there and 1, 2, 3 on him, 1, 2, 3 on him. I think Elisha heard it in his heart, because he sends word to the king, wherefore have you rent your clothes? Let him now come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. The man has not left yet, and the delegation is not. They're still at the palace. The king is having a meltdown over here because of the letter, and you would think if within a matter of minutes, Naaman would have packed his bag and said, I'm going home. I ain't hanging around here. Came all the way from Damascus, all the way down here, and he tells me he can't do anything for me. And you would think in a matter of minutes, he would have been gone. But Elisha across town hears what's happened, and he sends a delegation over there and intercepts them before they can get going. I think, Marion, that's why I believe he heard it in his heart. More so than he had to get a text message and, you know. Hold your place here and go to Luke chapter 4. And we're going to go to the New Testament just for a moment. This is a passage we looked at earlier, Luke chapter 4. And back when we were studying Elijah. And now we're going to repeat it again. Luke 4. Because I just have to. Jesus is talking to some people, and they don't really appreciate him and his ministry. The best they can say is Joseph is his daddy. They can't say God is his father. The best they can say is Joseph is his father. But in Luke 4:23, he said unto them, you will surely say unto me this proverb, Physician, heal thyself. Whatsoever we have heard done in Capernaum, do also here in this country. Verse 24, and he said, Verily I say unto you, no prophet is accepted in his own country, but I tell you the truth. Many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heavens were shut up, for how long? 3 years, 6 months, when a great famine was throughout all the land, but unto none of them was Elijah sent, save that poor little widow woman that he went and lived with. Verse 27, read all that from verse 27. And many lepers were in Israel at the time of, that's Old English, but that should be Elisha, the prophet. Many lepers were in Israel, and none of them were cleansed except who?
90.
Right where we're at tonight in 2 Kings 5. Many lepers were in Israel. This is Jesus' words, not mine. Many. The king is told, you got a letter here from this king. He wants his top general healed. There were many lepers in Israel. None of them will be healed. None. There is no cure at that time. There is no antidote. They suffered outside the city, quarantined away. Cut to the chase, we know Naaman's going to get healed. You good Nazarenes read your Bible. You know the story. But all I'm saying is there were many there. Do you understand why the king's so upset? There is no healing. There is no cure. Elisha across town says, send him to me. Send him to me. Verse 9, so Naaman has not left town yet. He is intercepted. Naaman came with his horses and his chariot and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. Verse 9. Naaman gets a referral. King can't help you, but there's somebody across town that can. He's a specialist. This guy couldn't help me, but I'm going to go see another guy. Verse 10, does Elisha come out to see him?
Send a message.
Does he come out and examine him? Take his pulse? Check his blood pressure? He's looking his ears, down his throat? No. Does he even send his PA? No. Gehazi, his servant, comes out with a little piece of paper. Here's the prescription. Here's your prescription, and what's on the little slip of paper? What's he supposed to do?
Wash in the Jordan
Go to the Jordan and do what?
7 times.
7 times. Dip. 7 times, and you will be healed. How does Naaman receive the doctor's advice? Verse 11. Angry.
Went away.
Mad. Have you ever left a doctor's office mad? I have. Waited in there for an hour and a half. He spent 2 minutes with me. For nothing. That's a lot of money for 2 minutes. He left. He traveled a long distance from here down here to see the king. The king basically run him off. I can't help you. Get out of here. Then he gets a referral to go see another guy, and this guy doesn't even come out and lay hands on him, doesn't anoint him with oil, doesn't pray over him, doesn't do anything. He just says, go wash in the Jordan River. When I get home, I'm going to get my whole army, and we're coming back here. And when I get my hands on that little girl that said that there was somebody down there that could heal me, I'm going to wring her neck. He is furious. You've wasted my time. You've embarrassed me, humiliated me before all of Israel and the king of all people. Our arch enemy. I'm behind enemy lines anyway, and you've made a fool out of me. And he left in a rage, and verse 12 says that. And he says, are not Arbana and Pharpar rivers in Damascus a whole lot cleaner water up in where we come from? And you want to send me that old smelly, stinky Jordan River, fish smell? We have cleaner water up in the mountains. And he left in a rage. Somewhere along the way, after they've got a little distance, one of his servants came near, whispered to him, and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldn't thou have done it? If he'd have asked of you some great exploit or something, would you have not been challenged by that and did it to get a healing? Just because he asked you something simple, don't go home without trying it. If he would have said, drink a gallon of this tonight, take all these pills, fast after midnight, be here at 4:30 in the morning, pay up front, full amount, sign all these papers, make sure you got somebody to drive the chariot for you, make sure you bring doctor's orders with you and have them faxed to us, make sure you got your mask with you, got your vax card, and have you been sick? Are you sick now? Do you plan to be sick? If they were to ask you some great thing to do, would you not have done it? He said, yeah. Well, don't go home without at least trying it. You've come this far. It's a long way home. Verse 14, so he went. Somewhere along here on the Jordan, we don't know where this happened, but somewhere in here it happened. I like to think it was below the Sea of Galilee, somewhere in here. He got in the water and he dipped. What happened after the first time? Nothing. What happened about the second time? How about the third? Or the 4th? Or the 5th? Or the 6th? How about the 7th? Seventh time you come up healed and cleansed. And I think not only cleansed outwardly of the leprosy, I think God did a deep work in that man's heart. Because the rest of what you read about this guy is nothing but wonderful. Now he was already a mighty man of valor. He was already an honorable man. He was already somebody that God was using who is a Gentile. He's not even a Hebrew, but God is working with him. Israel's enemy, but God's using him. You know, God can do that. That really messes with our theology, but he can do that. He was so overjoyed, he was so humbled. Verse 15, he comes back to the man of God. He comes back to Elisha's house. That's why I think something happened in his heart. He didn't just go home. He came all the way back, maybe 30 miles, to Elisha's house to say thank you. Remember what Jesus said about the 10 lepers that were healed?
One came back.
One come back. He said, where's the other 9? And one fell at his feet. I see a New Old Testament parable here. This guy came back, and he is so overwhelmed with his healing. He says, he returned to the man of God and all his company. See that? That's not Elisha's company. That's all the delegation of men that traveled with him. They're all there, and they're all happy. Their favorite general, their man they'd laid their life down for, he got healed. What does he tell Elisha? Verse 15.
Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel.
Now I know. He heard that there was a prophet down here that maybe could help him, from a little girl. And something stirred inside of him. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be wonderful? The king hears about it, and the king believes. The king believes enough to send his top general behind enemy lines down here, knowing even with the delegation he sends, he could be assassinated. He could lose him. But he loves him enough. He says, I want you. He believes. And he believes enough that he gives him over, in today's world, $4.5 million. And he believes enough that when he makes this long trek all the way down here and this bird tries to run him off, and somebody says, wait, don't leave. There's another guy here you need to see. He believes enough that instead of getting mad and leaving, he will go to Elisha's house. And then he believes enough. He believes enough to say, I'm going to try it. And he gets in the water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 times he's healed. And he says, now I know. I believed it, I heard it, but now I really know it. Hold your place here and go to the book of Job. Clear to the end of the book of Job, the last chapter. If you get to the book of Psalms, Job is right before Psalms. So if you can't find Job, find Psalms 1 and look on the other side of the page and you'll have Job 42. I thought of this when I was reading this. I thought, I've read this before in the Bible. Naaman said, behold, now I know there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Job 42:5. Somebody read that for us.
My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you.
After all that Job went through at the very end, after all the loss, and then all the questioning by his friends and the accusations, and then the questioning by God. At the very end, Job says, verse 5, I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now, Lord, I see you. And verse 2, Kim, would you read that as well?
I know that you can do all things, no purpose of yours can be thwarted.
I know that you can do everything. That's, at the end of the day, that's what Job said when it's all said and done. I know that you can do anything. That is what Naaman is saying to a back in Elisha's house, completely healed, set free. There is no God in the whole world but your God. Wow. Verse 15, he said, oh, here's your money. Let me pay you 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4.5, 4.6 million. And what did Elisha say?
We'll receive nothing.
He takes his bill and writes paid in full. No charge. No charge. I don't want you going back home with the thought that our God charges for this. I don't want you going back and telling the king, this cost you anything. There's no charge. Wow. There's something really confusing here in verse 17, and I really had to dig to get an answer. Naaman said, shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules' burden of dirt? What on earth is he asking for? Yeah, he wants some dirt. How much dirt?
As much as 2 mules can carry.
Yeah, as much as 2 pack mules can carry to take back to Damascus. Why does he want dirt from Israel?
Because God is in Israel.
This is holy ground. I want to take some back. I think everybody that goes over to Israel wants a little bit of water to bring home from Jordan, a little bit of dirt from the Jericho road. And just kind of save that. And every once in a while, get it out and look at it. One lady on the bus, she had got her water out of the Jordan River and put it in a bottle of water on the trip. She downed it before she realized what she was drinking. Then we all got worried she's going to get sick.
Was a good laugh.
Oh man, she was embarrassed and we were scared. She's gonna get left behind here. Sure enough, there was a thought. He said, I want to take some dirt back that I can stand on that, spread it out someplace. I can stand on that dirt and I can pray to your God. There's something to that. I like that guy's thinking. He said, I'm going to take some dirt back with me. And I can, out in our garden, put a little spot, put some rocks out there and have a little spot where I can go out there and stand and never forget what happened here. That's pretty touching. Verse 18, and then he asked for a favor. Verse 18, somebody explain that.
Is it that he thinks he still has to go through the ritual?
Well, when he goes back to Damascus, he will still be a top general. And he's going to be under obligation to go to their temple because of the king. And when him and the king go in together to worship Rimmon, which would be the Syrian version of Baal, what's he asking for?
Pardon.
Forgiveness.
He says to Elisha, you know, when I go home, they don't worship your God up there. When I go up there, I am obligated, it's mandated. I have to go into the temple and I have to worship their God. So when I am beside the king and we go in together and we kneel and he's worshiping that God, I'm going to go through the motions on the outside, but on the inside, I'm going to be worshiping your God. Will you forgive me for that? And what does Elisha tell him in verse 19?
Go in peace.
The greatest blessing the Hebrews could give you was shalom. Shalom, my brother, my sister, shalom. Elisha does not say, well, you just lost your blessing. You can't do that. You can't go in there. You'll lose the blessing. He said, I have no choice. I have to. My job requires me to go into that temple and to bow with the king. My heart's not in it. My heart is in with your God. Would you forgive me? Elisha says, shalom. What did Naaman learn about the God of Israel? Let's walk through all that. What did he learn?
He's a simple God.
It's not complicated. This almost looks foolish. It looks too simple. It looked too easy to him. No! It's got to be more complicated than that. It became a stumbling block to him. What else did he learn?
His word is true.
His word is true. What else did he learn?
He gives life.
He's a good God. All these other gods that they served, you had to serve them and appease them, keep them happy. Here's a God that is working to please his people. And he brings joy to their life. I think he learned that their God will accept a Gentile. He's not Hebrew. He doesn't have the pedigree that they have. He can't go down through all his ancestry and say, I'm of this tribe or that tribe. No, he's a Gentile. He come down here, and their God accepted him. And their God not only accepted him, their God gave him a healing. And he's not going to stay there. He's going to go back home, but he's a changed man. He learned a lot. This God can be trusted. What do you think his king learned about this God? I mean, they go to war against Israel, but their God routed them in the mountains. Their God routed them in the valleys. And then he sends a guy down here, and their God heals him.
It's a forgiving God.
Exactly. You don't mess with that God. What did the little servant girl learn about her God?
But she already knew that he would be healed.
Confirmed it, didn't he? God confirmed it. She said, "Oh, that your husband was in Samaria. There's a prophet down there. He'd get healed." And God used a little girl to put a wonderful chapter in our Bible. What if that little girl would have been quiet, looked the other way and said, I ain't going to tell her. Bless you. We wouldn't have had this story if she would have kept it to herself. But she said, oh, there's a God in heaven that can change your life. What did this king of Israel learn about God? He's on the throne of Israel. What did he learn about the God of Israel?
He loves others, not just them.
He is no respecter of persons. And he uses other people than the king. He was furious. I'm not God. This can't happen. No, it can't with him, but it can with a prophet. Well, story continues, doesn't it? In some way, I just wish this chapter ended right here, but it doesn't. Human nature is what it is. Verse 20, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master has spared Naaman the Syrian in not collecting any money. I'm paraphrasing that. But as the Lord lives, I'm going to go collect. He left money on the table. He didn't charge him anything. He brought $4.6 million over here, and he's sending him home, and he's not going to ask for anything. No finder's fee, nothing. Verse 21, he went running after, and he must have been running because they had chariots, remember? They had chariots. And he went really running after them and chased them down, got them stopped, and Naaman stopped and got out of his chariot. Verse 21, and said, Is it okay? Everything all right? Verse 22, he said, All is well. We've got company. All them church folks come in on us. And could you help us out with a donation? And not a whole lot. 2 talents of silver, and I really like those Armani suits. really, really like those. I think I did fit me and wouldn't even have to be altered. And Naaman, good as gold, he's got his heart is right with God. He's healed. He says, you can have it all. I wouldn't care. Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in bags with the garments. And he laid them upon 2 of his servants, and off they went. And the servants helped carry him, verse 24, to a tower. Not sure where that's at, but Gehazi went in there, and what did he do with the money?
Stored them away.
He stored it away. Some say he buried it, he hid it. Verse 25 starts with a little word, 3 letters. What is it? But. Isn't that incredible? But. He went in before his master, and Elisha said, Where you been? He said, I ain't going nowhere. Verse 26, he said unto him, Went not my heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Didn't you take a little bit of me with you? You took my reputation, you took my name, you took my ministry with you, you used it all to collect. Didn't my heart go with you? How did Elisha know this had happened? God told him. This is not the only time you read about God speaking to Elisha and telling him something. You know? It's just like when he said, Oh, I know what just happened in the palace. Send word that, send that guy down here to me. I can help him. God spoke to Elisha. He knew when he left. He knew when he come back. He knew what he did. He knew it all. Is it a time to receive money? Collect. All of yards, vineyards, sheep, oxen, men servants, manservants. Why do you think he mentioned all of that? You reckon maybe that's what Gehazi wanted to buy with his silver? You got a spot of ground picked out with an olive grove on it, and I can put up a fence, and I can have livestock like others, and I can be rich. I think everything that he mentioned was everything that was in Gehazi's heart. Every bit of it was in his heart. That's where his ambitions lie. Verse 27, close the chapter. What happened to Gehazi? The dreaded disease that Naaman got healed of shows up instantly in Gehazi. And what is the judgment pronounced on him?
Generations.
And his descendants forever.
Yeah, that forever, this is going to crop out in your family. One commentary I read said that there would be somebody in every generation that would crop out in. When I first read it, I thought, well, everybody will be a leper. And I thought, well, if that happened, they'd quit having kids. You know, that family name would just die out. I don't know what it was, but it was a curse, wasn't it? So what did that silver and those garments do for Gehazi?
Condemned him.
Yeah, he sure didn't get rich, did he? Sure didn't get rich. And what did Gehazi learn about the God in Israel? We've talked about everybody else. We talked about what Naaman learned. King of Syria, king of Israel, little girl. What did Gehazi learn?
God punishes.
Yeah. Be sure your sins will find you out. I think in all the stories that we study of Elijah and Elisha, I'm a Johnny One note here, every bit of these stories is saying to all of Israel and all of the Middle East, there is a God right here. And he can do anything. There's a God right here that cares. There's a God right here that forgives and loves and pardons and will protect. There's a God right here to be worshipped and served and honored and feared. This is the God. It's what Naaman said. He is the God of the whole world. Father, we bow before you tonight, for you are God. We do not bow in fear. We bow because you're holy. And we bow with thanksgiving. Thank you for your hand on our life. Thank you for what you have done. Thank you for the cleansing that comes from the cross and the shed blood of Jesus Christ. Thank you that you set people free. Thank you for what you did for Naaman. Thank you for what you did for us. May we learn from our God that you will accept anybody who will come to you. And you will change their life and give them a new day. May we walk in that, celebrate that, and share that everywhere we go. In Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said,
Amen.
Amen. That is 2 Kings 5. Anything you'd like to add before we tie a ribbon on it? Oh my, quiet. All right. Thank you for coming tonight. God bless you for showing up on a winter night in February to come to church. Bless you. Shalom.